Yeah, it's funny. It's like GCC won't let me be and won't let me be me, so let me see.
Yeah.
Is a very apt thing, right? Like it pulls you in, and then
this is the Bhangra Podcast.
On this episode of the podcast, we talk to Fez and his last ride with GCC. You want to give you gotta give it a little intro about yourself.
Oh, good grief!
You gotta
That's
say something.
the worst possible thing that you could have asked me for. Introduce myself what, in Bhangra terms, or just in life terms?
Well, you could do both, right? Like, my name is Fez. I'm currently doing this, but I used to do this, which is why I'm here.
Sure. Okay, fine. Hi, my name is Faisal, but everybody will know me as Fez or Fez. I used to, many years ago, dance with Kabru Chalchabile, GCC, in England. And that's why I'm here today, because I became obsessed with Bhangra and couldn't let it go.
I'm trying to remember how I even met you, because it is kind of weird that we are friends and you live in a different, country. There's like an ocean separating us.
Yeah. So after initially, so I told you about how I started dancing in like high school and stuff.
Yeah.
So at that point, there was no BTF. It was POL.
Sidebar: we never met in person. Punjab Online.
Yeah.
Right. Punjab Online was like the janky forum, and there was like some sort of revolution. I forget what it was.
I think the problem was that there was no way of knowing who was who. A lot of the time, like you had your regular people, which was when I think I first came across Arjun Barua repeatedly in those posts, which we'll get to later.
Hooray for internet friends!
But yeah, there was just people would just come on and say all kinds of crap and talk shit about teams and competitions, which I had absolutely no context for, but I was eating all of that up because it was blowing my mind that this was even a thing, a scene, so many people actually involved in something that didn't even exist in my country at the time. So it was like watching an Indian drama.
It wasn't a lot of ways reality TV. Right, like Punjab Online was reality television at its finest, except
massively.
People were just creating like fake accounts and just burning each other. I don't even know if it would be fun if Punjab Online still, like, someone still had the URL and we could still see it. But yeah. What do you do now?
I work in insurance, very interestingly, but still apply some of the stuff that came from Bhangra on a day-to-day basis.
What exactly did you apply? What did you learn? It translates so well.
So my job now is within training, learning and development. So the thing, mostly conflict resolution is probably what I use in my work, and finding ways to work with people that are not like me at all, and understanding that people are coming from different points of view was something that was probably the first time I really learned when I started dancing with GCC. Because I hadn't been doing something as a group with a bunch of people who were so varied, with strong opinions before. So something like that kind of sticks with you, especially when you're doing it for so long. And I still use that even now.
And how long has it been since you danced?
So last time was 2014, so 6 years.
6 years. Man, that is a long... So you've been out of the game for a while.
Just a little bit, yeah. Just a little bit.
So tell me about your last competition with GCC. Is it the Bhangra competition 2014? What was it?
Yeah, the Bhangra competition 2014. I think it was supposed to be in about October-ish. So in the fall, as you guys like to call it, which makes no sense, is autumn.
It's the fall.
It's autumn.
Because leaf fall down. Fall.
Don't make me make fun of America on an American podcast, please. Sidewalk.
So you were not you were not supposed to dance, right? 2014. You were.
I was most certainly not. I was retired again. I had been retired many times before. Nobody ever believed me because I kept coming back.
Right.
And this time I was well and truly retired. I wasn't even in England. I was in France on holiday. I was in Paris with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from, I think it was Rami. Shout out to Rami. He's never going to listen to this, but he's the one that gave me a call at the time.
Shout out to Rami.
Shout out to Rami. He's living in Australia now, working as a doctor. So thank him. But yeah, he gave me a call. He's like, listen, man, I know you said you're never going to dance again, but we really need a 16th guy. Like, there is nobody else.
Yeah.
You know, he was really trying to sell it to me how important I was because they had nobody else.
Rami's like, he's essentially just fishing at the bottom of the barrel.
Literally at this point.
I got 15. He's like, what can I find? What can I find?
You've got 2 arms, 2 legs, and you can kind of smile crooked. So we need somebody. And I told him I'd think about it. Initially, I tried.
What was going through your head? Like, why did you need to think about it? I thought, I mean, what's an 8th comeback to you, right?
Time, money, life. I wanted to get my life back together. Bhangra had drained many years from my life. A lot of time, a lot of energy, and it was very last minute. I think there was only going to be about 6 weeks to even practice and then be ready for competition. It was literally about 6-7 weeks out tops, and it would mean that I would have to basically spend, I think, Fridays only at home, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was, the rest of the week in a completely different city, sleeping on couches, floors, whatever, still being broke that entire time and figuring out a way to travel, feed myself, and also continue with life.
So talk to me a little bit more about that addiction side of it. Like, why does it have such a negative place?
So for me, it was basically filling a hole in that my home life was terrible, not even for want of a better word. It was just terrible. Family life, home life, in terms of work, education, all of that stuff. I was basically leading a double life. So at the time, every time I would leave home, I could leave that behind and go do Bhangra and just be that guy. Be the dancer, be the one of the 12, one of the 16, whoever, and nobody would know. Nobody needed to know. Nobody would ask me or have any clue of what was going on in my home life. So I was always desperate to get away. So when it's so bad at home, all I wanted to do was be away.
Right.
There was nowhere else I'd rather be. That's why I always tried so hard to always make it to anything. There were times when I went down to a gig once that was so far south. It took me like 6 hours to get there for a gig where I literally danced for like 10 minutes.
And then did you go 6 hours back immediately after that?
It was 6 hours. It was like someone's friend's birthday or something. Danced, had a couple of drinks, whatever, and then I'm pretty sure I just took the first coach the next morning, which was probably only 5 or 6 hours later. So I did more actual traveling than spending time in the place that I was supposed to be at.
Goddamn.
So I think, yeah, in my head at the time, I probably thought it was completely, I love this thing so much. But looking back on it, a lot of the drive for it was just getting out of the house so I could go do a thing that actually made me feel something, feel happy, feel like, I don't know, the person that everybody else was seeing, at least for a little bit. That's where the addiction side of it really came a lot of the time.
And what did you notice about like the addiction that particularly tipped you off that you had one, right? Like how did you come to grips with that? What did you see?
When enough time passes by and you see that your life looks exactly the same as it did 3-4 years before and nothing has changed and you've done nothing to change that yourself. When I started actually looking at my life and thinking, Jesus Christ, my 20s are passing me by and I have done nothing that I would deem of value, that's when I really started to think about it more.
Yeah, and so, when you're, backing up a little bit here, at the time, 2014 rolls around, where are you as a person?
I was in a relationship at the time with someone who was traveling all over the world for work. Yeah, I was sat on my ass at home. We would see each other. I would be the broke one. She would be the one with the money. And whenever things would get kind of like, let's talk about the future and what were we going to do in the future, I couldn't see a future for myself.
Right.
I couldn't look forwards, because in the past I would look forward to the next competition. That was the future. I didn't have to think about other things. And that was one of the many reasons why I was like, okay, seriously, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep doing this to myself, because as much as Bhangra makes me feel good, as soon as it's over, I feel that much worse going back and seeing, oh, actually, yeah, whatever I did over there, that was great. But when I come back, things are worse. Things aren't getting any better. And I would feel terrible about it every single time. And I felt like I was running out of time. So that's when I was starting to change things, do things to improve my actual real life. And that's why I was hesitant to go back even one last time. So that's why I knew when I was done, I was done.
And so just for context, you were where and where's GCC?
So if we're talking, no, you know what? I'm not even going to use the Game of Thrones example.
A few moments later.
Yeah, north. So think Winterfell in terms of Game of Thrones map. Because I think the map is basically just England. So Winterfell would be Sheffield, which is essentially just slightly south of where I'm from. And the guys were going to be practicing in Birmingham, which is in the Midlands. So for all the Desi people in the States listening, you probably have a cousin in England from Birmingham.
Okay.
Which is usually where all the Bhangra dances historically in England. Southall, Birmingham, that kind of area tend to come from there. So it's a good, in English terms, it's a lot, 4 or 5 hours on a bus, which is what I used to have to do. So yeah, I would have had to do that every single week for a period of 6-7 weeks. That meant also clearing it with home, because I still lived with my parents at the time. And as you can imagine, Asian parents who did not know I used to dance.
They didn't know.
I used to tell them, they had no idea the entire time I was dancing until after I finished.
What did you tell them? You were this 4-hour bus rides.
I was going to football tournaments.
Wait, your parents thought you were a professional soccer player? Like that's what they thought?
No. Not professional at all, but just football tournaments put together by people. There's some prize money at the end. Those were a thing. So my mom was clueless. She had no idea.
And why did you say that? What would have been the reaction if they knew you were doing Bhangra?
So I came from a conservative Muslim family.
Okay.
So that was not prancing around on stage in a skirt in front of strangers to music was probably about the most haram thing I could have done, unless you added kind of pork to that situation somehow. So yeah, it was never going to go down well. Even when they found out later on, it did not go down well.
So you were faced with getting your life together. You were faced with being broke, 4 to 5 hour drives, lying to your parents for what would have probably been the 7th or 8th time. But you ended up dancing.
Yeah, because that's how much of an idiot I am. And yeah, I guess I still had, the addiction hadn't quite let go of me yet. And he also, because, he called me again later on, I think a day or two later on. I told him I'd call him back once I got back to England. And he explained that they had it all organized. This is how it was going to work. Rooms have been booked. People are sorted. We'll pay for your travel between the 15 of us and all this kind of stuff. Because, they knew my situation. They knew I was broke and I wouldn't be able to afford the travel, all of this kind of stuff. So they were like, we got you covered. You're doing us a solid if you dance, so we will kind of look after you in that regard. So, yeah, I guess I just kind of gave in the end, in the hopes that finally, maybe, we'll win something. Because up until that point, we most certainly had not. Up until that point,
and
we'd failed to deliver on the promise of what could have been.
You were 0 for what at this point? Like 0 for 10? 0 for 11?
No. There's not even that many competitions in the UK for us to be that much. I think so. The team was originally established in 2009. But again, at that stage, there were like 4 guys doing weddings and stuff. There wasn't even an independent Bhangra competition. The first one we did as GCC was 2012. So it wasn't really that long. At that point, we'd done a handful of competitions, 3, 4. But when you consider the fact that there's probably 1 competition a year, maybe 2, that loss carries over for the entire year. That failure carries over for the entire year. So you don't get to make up for it at the next competition. It's just, oh, you saw GCC at that competition? Yeah, they were supposed to be really good. Yeah, well, it was a mess. And that holds over.
You talked about it for a while. What really drove that decision? Why did you do it? I know the guys needed you, but did you feel like that was the chance to win and like get like the monkey off your back, or what was it?
Yeah, I think not even to win. I think it was to just be able to put out, for me personally, at least one performance that I could be completely proud of. Because, as I mentioned earlier, there was always something wrong with the performances that we did. Either our stamina was shit or something went wrong, or I was always the guy that would cock up at least one move, even in that set. Right. I'm the guy that screwed up at least once. So I just wanted to at least get one set that I knew I could, however many years later, go back and watch it and say, yeah, I did that. And I can be proud of that one. Unfortunately, it did work out like that.
So 5 years. So you were 5 years, right, at this point, of getting close, no cigar, getting close, no cigar. You had done WBC, right? You had come to the States. You had danced there. So this was going to be a big deal, right? Would you consider 2014 like make or break it for GCC? Like this was it?
I think this one was just kind of, everybody knew we had everything needed to win. So the guys who were running the team at the time, Deepak, Rami, Hasharan, were very confident of, if you listen to us and we stay within this timetable, we will win. That was really the train of thought. And to be honest, because of the way that they had organized it, they laid everything out to everyone. There were no secrets. There was no, we're the captain, so everything stays with us and you guys are just the grunts, so you just come to practice and do your thing and leave. They laid it all out for everyone. If we do this, we will win. Just trust us. And everybody did. And that was the reason why they were in charge, because we'd tried and failed again and again. Sometimes because there were too many chefs in the kitchen. But this time it was just kind of like, look, let them do their thing. Everybody just do your job. If everybody does their job,
right,
we got this. And everybody did, thankfully. Everybody played their part.
Right.
There was a lot less arguing than usual, which was nice.
I think 5 years of striking out probably gets you to a point where
it gets in your head a bit. It gets in your head a bit.
How many weeks did you have, and what was that experience like?
So I think it was about 6 or 7 maximum. There was no more than about a month and a half. Now, I'm not Arjun Barua. My learning ability is not his. But I tried to pick everything up as quick as I could, and it helped that everybody else was already pretty much there. So I didn't have to worry about anything else other than learning choreo, learning formations. That was it. Everything else was done, organized, ready. You just needed to be told what to do. My main concern was usually making sure I was up to scratch compared to everybody else, because going into it, I was one of the older guys. I was one of the more experienced guys. So there are certain expectations that come along with that. Oh, Fess is going to come in. He's going to pick it up in no time. And everything will be fine. But for me personally, that was quite stressful. I didn't necessarily put that out there at the time.
Right.
But that was the way I was as a dancer, was I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, and everybody does, obviously. But when you're going into it as one of the more experienced guys who's supposed to just, he'll get it.
Yeah.
I had to make sure that I did. So even when I came home after a week long of practice, that was still all I was doing when I was coming home as well, was yet more practice.
Yeah.
And even with stuff like formations, that stuff was going over my head. We were doing the formations. It was like, okay, move from A to B to this to this. I couldn't have told you what those formations were as I was doing them. I didn't really realize what they were until someone finally took a recording from above. But it didn't matter because I knew my spot, and so did everybody else. And this was the level of organization, though, that we had not had up until this point. It had been a lot sloppier in general. It was, we have a bunch of really good dancers, but we lacked the organization. And that's what those 3 guys brought. So that part of it took a lot of pressure off.
Yeah.
When you could just go, all right, I don't need to worry about much apart from where I need to be. My main concern was just making sure that I didn't let anybody else down.
As you're prepping for the competition, you're driving down, you're crashing it on people's couches, you're trying to learn the set. What reminded you? Were there ever moments that reminded you, like, hey, I wish I could keep doing this, or was it mostly like, oh, like as I'm sitting here after practice, beaten up, like this is a good reason why I don't want to do this anymore?
Yeah, it was a mixed bag, because seeing the level of organization this time around and how it just felt a lot easier than previous times. It wasn't, show up, okay, we're going to do this section today, and you only get half of it done. Every single practice was methodical, effective. Whatever we laid out and planned that day, that's what we actually got done. There was no, okay, well, we didn't get this done this time, so we'll shove that into next week. It was, it was all there. It was prepped. It was good. And there was an element of regret, but it wasn't really down to me, because that wasn't the makeup of the team before. That only changed at that stage at the end, the last time I was doing it. So there was an element of regretting that I wish this had happened earlier. Maybe we could have achieved more sooner. Mm-hmm. But then at the same time, when we would finish, and again, I'd be crashing on, and it's not like I was the only one crashing on the floor or crashing on a couch or whatever, and then thinking about the journey home that I had to do, and then thinking about coming back again. I promised myself at that point that I was never going to do it again. I would put in my head, I will put even more into this one last competition than I've ever put before. But then I don't have anything left.
Yeah. You're tying the bow on it, right?
Yeah. There were kids who were going to be like 16, 17 competing in this competition. I was 26. There was no reason for me to keep competing against people who were 10 years my junior.
Yeah. So showdown, was it showdown? No, Bhangra competition happens, right? So
yeah,
the Bhangra competition happens. you guys perform. What's it like day of the competition?
Yeah.
Describe for me and people.
I mean, at that stage, I think we were all pretty damn confident. Because normally, when it came to just before competition time, things were still sloppy, people were still making mistakes, things were still going wrong, stuff wasn't done. This time round, we were just all getting hyped from the mix because we didn't hear the final mix until we got into the minibus on the way to the competition. And I think even then, they were still messing with it. All the way up to the end. Because the way, I don't know if they did this, I'm pretty sure they did this on purpose. Hash and Prince, the way they used to make the mixes, they would use sometimes songs that would never end up in the final mix. Just so stuff didn't get stale. So they
wow, okay. So they wanted you to stay fresh by just like rotating it, so it didn't feel stale after a while.
Again,
whether
or not that was on purpose, I don't know. Whether or not they would just continually find new songs that were better and more hype, I don't
and all of a sudden, you guys go and dance, and you get off stage. What do you feel?
I mean, as soon as the results were announced, I mean, you can see it from the video, I just burst into tears. Uncontrollable tears, non-stop, all the way to the point where we walked off stage, walked around the back. People are already leaving the audience now. They've gone back into the hallway to meet their family members. I'm still crying. We're walking through the people from the crowd. I'm still crying. People are saying to me, because they don't realize what team I'm on and they just see a dude crying, it's okay, man. Maybe you'll win next time. I can't... I'm crying so much, I can't even explain to them that I'm crying because we won. That's how much I'm crying. I think up until the point that we finally got to meet some of the guys' families that were in the audience, and I had to get myself together for the pictures. But yeah, I probably cried for about a good 10 minutes straight, because I think it was years of effort that just burst out. As sad as that sounds, and I'm sure there's going to be someone laughing, but I don't really care. I spent a lot of time traveling a long way, obsessing about this stuff, from the first time vividly watching a KJ video by accident in like 2005, 4, something like that, to getting to a point where I competed in a competition. I know we did well. I still was the one that screwed up one move, as always, because that was always me. But we won, and I didn't seem real. It really didn't seem real. And it came at a very strange time when I wasn't one of the main guys. There was a period where people would know my name when I'm walking around through a competition because we were all from a similar generation. We'd come up together. But I was one of the old guys now. Nobody knew who the hell I was. And I didn't mind that. If anything, to be honest, I kind of preferred it because they left me to it. I was happy, I was satisfied, and I was pleased for the other guys that we got to do it together.
When you were taking these super long trips, you were taking these like long trips, right? And did you ever think about the pros and cons of like why you like it, why you don't like Bhangra, and were there ever moments where you felt like you wanted to keep dancing, or was it always moments where you consistently reminded of the reasons why you stopped dancing?
To be honest, I never looked back. So the day I got back from the competition, I deleted everything.
Oh shit.
Every video.
Oh shit.
All the music, all the practice videos, all of it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it at all. I didn't want to think about it again. I didn't want to hear it again. It was very much like a cold turkey, need to move on with my life thing, because if I did, I was kind of afraid to leave things there because then, I might be tempted to fall back into it. I don't know. It might sound dramatic to some people, but it was at that point for me where this thing was towards the end of it, and through the whole time, it was screwing my life up. Really, what I should have been doing instead of Bhangra was fixing my own life.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I was running away. I was sticking my head in the sand, and I was sticking it into Bhangra instead because it was making me feel like I was doing something at least. So there was no way I could go back. I had to get rid of it all.
Was it worth it?
Yeah. I think if, like, looking back now, if you were to delete that competition altogether, then I would have looked back at Bhangra very fondly for the friendships that I made, for the people that I met, but I wouldn't have looked back at the actual dancing side of it as anything that was worth doing in the end. Again, not because we won that last competition, but because it was a performance I can be proud of. Because again, we could have not placed all, and I would still say that set was good. But it's the only one for me personally that I can feel proud of. Like, we went to WBBC and all of that, but the set was not executed very well. We looked very tired, which we were. So, overall, with that last competition in there, I don't look on it with a regret. But if you were to take that out, then from the dancing perspective, I would have done.
What do you take away from that experience, that 2014 experience? Like, when you think about, that one journey, what did you walk away from that feeling or knowing?
That was probably the first time when I realized how much making all your effort kind of feel worth it. How do I explain this better? It was the first time where I'd been successful and I knew it was purely because of the effort that I'd put in up until that point. I hadn't been overly successful, academically or in my work life. And that's probably another reason why I exploded so much with emotion, because it was like, oh my fucking God, like I put so much effort into this thing and it was worth it. So this is what it feels like to actually achieve my goal, something that I've worked so hard for. It was the first time that I'd ever actually felt that feeling. Which was why it was so worth it, because it's, I don't know, maybe it is common for some people, but for me that still isn't a common feeling, to feel that level of achievement after working so hard.
It's interesting, right? Like, listening to the story the first time around, it's less like the forget about me. I think that's what it is, right? Forget about me with Eminem, and it's more of it more feels like Stan. The song Stand by Eminem? The line goes, I think it's something like the tea's gone cold.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Bhangra Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please help us out by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and Podchaser, as that really helps others find the podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all of them at the Bhangra Pod.